Good morning, and we are back with another episode of Around the Indoor Football World, where we always discuss the Indoor Football League, the National Arena League, and the Arena Football One. And as always, I'm joined by my trusty co-host TJ Bartholomew and Krish Vyas. But before we get into that, I'm going to play a quick intro video for you guys, and then we'll jump right into all the stuff we got to talk about today. All right. It's going to be a great episode today. We've got some pretty solid guests coming up later on. So definitely stick around for that. If you are a Nashville Cats fan, you're going to enjoy this show, most likely. So stick around. But we've got a lot to talk about. There's been a ton of moves in free agency. There's been some players that have not signed anywhere that have been a little bit curious and kind of making us wonder what they may do in 2026. And then there's also been a couple other moves that I felt were fairly surprising. So the first one that I want to go back to personally, we're going to start with IFL real quick, just so everybody's aware. The first move that I really wanted to discuss with you guys that I thought was kind of a big move this past week was that Tulsa announced the signing of multiple quarterbacks, not just one, not just two, not three, some multiple different quarterbacks. They brought in Josh Jones from Bay Area. They also signed TJ Edwards, and then it was Clifton McDowell, correct, Krish? So let's go to Krish first on this one. What are your thoughts about Tulsa's quarterback room and how they've assembled it this season?
Obviously, I think, TJ's injury, right, you never know. So you always have to plan ahead. I think Clifton McDowell is an amazing prototype for an indoor quarterback. He played at McNeese State and Montana State. He's only 24. He's fresh out of college. He graduated last year. Our boy Justin Clem on Twitter, he's big. He's a big friend of his. So, I've been following his career here for a while. So I'm really excited to see him indoors. I view him as a goal line, short yardage type guy. Last year, Vegas with Jerome, how they used him at the goal line on 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, right? They took the pressure off of Jaden Delora. So maybe this is the plan with McDowell. Bring him in, let him develop, and then take the pressure off Josh Jones in the end zone. That might be the idea with that.
I could see that. You avoid some injuries with, maybe TJ and Josh Jones, and obviously you have two quarterbacks that are healthy currently, so maybe Edwards starts the season on injured reserve. TJ, what are your thoughts on Tulsa's quarterback situation?
I think they're in really good shape. They're basically making sure that is not going to be a weak point no matter what, and I kind of like how they have two options again given the injury history. So I think they're planning on being in a good spot regardless of who gets it or who gets hurt. So I think they'll definitely. I'm not afraid to say in a way too early prediction that they're definitely setting up for a playoff run, mentally at least. So.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, with the coaching move there at the offensive coordinator position, bringing in Billy back, and then also the moves at quarterback. It's an impressive group so far, and I think realistically, what they're doing is exactly like you said. They're kind of guaranteeing themselves that they have the depth at quarterback to be able to make a playoff push, regardless of if there's injuries at the position or not. So
they have a lot of good skill position guys too. They signed Larry Harrington. They signed Montario Hunt from Alcorn State. He's a dog. Therese Trainer from Omaha Beef. So they're adding on, and I think they're moving on from the older pieces. You see they released Sheldon Augustine. That's someone who's been with them for a couple of years. He's a veteran. So I think they want to move more to the younger model because it's the new Tulsa. And I think they want to add that fresh energy with Billy back, too.
That's an interesting thought. I did not realize they signed Trip Harrington, so technically they have 4 quarterbacks on the roster. That's crazy. That's not a bad way to hide some depth there, quarterback. Obviously he can play some wide receiver. I think he's played a little bit of running back as well. Surprised they have not brought back Hassan Rogers yet, though. Krish, I know that's kind of your guy. I mean, are you surprised that they haven't, re-signed him as of yet?
Nah, I just think what went down with him last year with Tulsa, I think there's a lot more to the story than that was let on. So I think he moved on. I think Hassan Rogers will end up on a team this year. I just don't know where. I don't know where it'll be. It depends on how a team values him, and how he values himself too. So I think it's really interesting. I don't think he lands in Iowa, and I don't think he lands back in Tulsa, to be honest. So.
Okay. TJ, are you surprised to see that Tulsa hasn't re-signed Hassan Rogers? I mean, last year this guy literally started at quarterback. He started at running back. He played some defensive back. Honestly, one of the most versatile and dangerous players in the IFL, in my opinion. I think you're muted, buddy.
Yep. It's been a while. My bad. Yeah, with all the players that they're signing and the depth that they're getting, I could see them trying to build the team a different way. But why would you not take essentially, a slash guy? I mean, why would you not keep him, especially when he produced and he's been in your system? So I it definitely does surprise me because like I said, growing up a Steelers fan with Cordell Stewart, man, I love those slash players. They're a high commodity, and when you can get a guy who can play different positions at a very competent to high level in each option, I mean that's the gold mine right there. So I'm definitely surprised at that.
I agree. I mean, this is like, this is one of those guys that you can basically plug him anywhere on the field and he's going to produce, right? So it was kind of surprising to see the move that they have not brought him back. I would have imagined that he would have been one of the first players to resign, but like Chris said, there might be a little bit something else there that we're not necessarily privy to. But who knows? Who knows? I mean, it could just be
Quad City. If they feel like he's a culture fit, he's from Chicago, so that's right down the road.
That's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. And honestly, I think Quad City has done a pretty good job of developing and bringing in local talent as of late, and that would make a lot of sense for them, I'm sure. So that makes some sense for sure. And I mean, let's not forget that he's played in other leagues before. It wouldn't be surprising to see any team target him realistically. But moving on, Krish, you put Drew Powell on here as a name that you wanted to discuss. Why don't you kind of kick off that topic for us?
Yeah, I was doing some digging, so I saw Drew Powell started following the New Mexico Chupacabras on Instagram, and they followed him back. I mean, they follow everyone, but he did like one of 3 of their photos and put a fire emoji under one photo. So I don't know if that's a potential fit. That seemed like it would be awesome. This is Drew Powell with New Mexico, and I could see that happening, 100%.
That's an interesting little nugget there. Yeah, would not shock me at all to see Drew Powell end up in New Mexico. It wouldn't shock me to see them target a veteran quarterback. But who knows? TJ, what are your thoughts on Drew Powell and where he might end up in 2026?
Man, I'm kind of with Krish. That would be cool to see. I don't really know, man. He has that presence, he has that history in his career. I mean, he pretty much has a chance. Anyone who was quarterback needy can probably, can pick him up. And I don't see why he wouldn't at least elevate the quarterback room, if nothing else. If not, have a shot to win the starting job, obviously. So it's kind of surprising to me that he's still there. But yeah, if he would end up with the Chupacabras, man, that would be that'd be a cool storyline going in, man. They would be an instant first year, playoff potential right there, in my opinion, with that addition.
And so for me, like, I said it openly, like, I wish we went and got Drew Powell this year. I think that would have made us so much better. But Drew Powell, like, he might come with a price tag. But I don't know why you wouldn't pay that price tag, in my opinion. I mean, he's a leader. He, brings the best out of the people around him. Like, that Arizona team in 2021, they were not the most talented team. But they came out on top because of his leadership, and he made that team what it was. So I think Drew Powell is such an amazing quarterback. I still think he has a good 2-3 years left in the tank, in my opinion.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, last time he saw a field, he played pretty well. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's got quite a bit of gas left in the tank. A couple other moves that I wanted to kind of bring up with you guys is Javi Magalay, who had previously signed with Washington. And from what I understand, Chris, you said he's from the Seattle area. I knew he was from Washington, but I didn't realize he was from Seattle specifically. Has signed with Tucson. He spent some time in Tucson last year, but he's decided to sign a he spent some time with Arizona last year, but he decided to sign a restricted free agency deal with Tucson. Um, any thoughts on that move and what you think would have drawn him away from his home state?
I think it's more, I hate to say it, man, like J.R. Wells, he talks about his culture, this, that. The only thing I see is 3-17 in 2 years. That's the only thing I see. So there's no culture, there's no stability, and I think players start to see that. Why would I want to go somewhere where I know the offensive line is going to be terrible, or I know the defense is going to be terrible? Like, why would I want to go there? When I can go to IFL and I can get developed by someone like a Coach Fuller. I mean, that's just the reality of it. So I think, he was with Arizona last year. He's over in Tucson now. He had the chance to win the starting job. I think for the quarterback room they have right now with him and Casey Odo, I think Magali has a big chance to win the starting job in Tucson easily over Casey Odo. I don't think highly of Casey Odo at all. So I'm more in the boat of this move was more of a career move and a system fit. He doesn't fit the arena style. If you watch his film, he's more of a, he's a play action, rollout type of guy. Like, I don't think he can stay and throw in the pocket. So for the Wolfpack, this opens up more questions. Like, you have my boy Gio Sanders on the roster, which I love Gio, but Gio is definitely not an arena quarterback whatsoever. So they need to go out and get someone who can play the arena style. Otherwise, it's going to be the same results as the last 2 years. So.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I mean, when I saw Gio Sanders sign there, I was thinking more of him as the QB2, the guy who could come around, play a couple other positions when needed, add some depth other places, but realistically, he wasn't most likely not going to be the starter. Magalay, I thought, was actually a good fit for the arena style. I know he rolls out a little bit, but I don't necessarily think that he's the mobile kind of quarterback they typically look for in the IFL. And I thought he threw the ball well. I got to see him in person at the pro level combine in 2024. Seemed like a smart enough kid and on all that stuff. So I thought that he was going to be a good fit in Washington, and I was excited about him going up there because of his ties to the area. I always like to see some of the local guys stick where they're known, help those teams build up a fan base and everything like that. But, ultimately he felt like it was in his best interest to move on to Tucson rather than even go back to Arizona, and I can understand why. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens here. But there's a couple other moves here on the IFL transaction list that I wanted to bring up, and there's specifically Iowa has signed a quarterback in Ivan Corbin. TJ, have you heard anything about Ivan Corbin? Are you aware of him at all?
To be honest with you, I am not at all.
Yeah, fair. Ivan Corbin, I do know some stuff about him. I mean, he has more of a legal rap than stats on the sheet. So, he's been involved with the law multiple times. I'm really surprised he still keeps getting opportunities. I'm all for guys getting second chances, but he's like a fifth chance guy. So for me, I think he was with Green Bay for a little bit, and then he signed with Eau Claire with Tay, and I don't know what happened there, but I don't know. I don't know why they signed him in Iowa. I mean, he must be local, because their quarterback room right now in Iowa is not good. Not good. I know you think highly of what's that kid's name from the Mexico League? Ari
Robidoux.
Yeah. So, like, for me, when I watch him, I don't think he's an indoor quarterback at all. I mean, this is the guy who threw 48 interceptions in 4 years, 6.2 yards per play. I mean, I don't think he's an indoor quarterback at all. So I think it's rough. It's looking rough for Iowa. I have them winning 4 games in 2025 and 2026. So
interesting. I was not expecting that low of a prediction, but it's understandable to a certain extent if you don't believe in the moves. Looking at some of the things Green Bay did, they have released Torrey Boyd, re-signed Andrew Carter, and re-signed Devin Salter, kind of solidifying that offensive line there, which great moves by them. A couple moves that stuck out to me, and honestly, I think you guys are going to have a similar opinion to what I've got here, but a couple guys have been named to the exempt list, and I don't know if these are cleanup moves or what exactly is going on here. So kind of stick with me here. We got Rivarius Rivers being put back on the exempt list for the UFL. I think that was just a cleanup move. You got Zavon Lindsay from the Arizona Rattlers. He's also being named to the exempt list for the CFL. Mayan Anahatu and is also on the CFL exempt list. And then one name that really stuck out to me that I'm really hoping is actually legitimate is Antonio Wimbush is on the CFL exempt list, and this was as of the 5th. So obviously really excited to see that for him. What are you guys' thoughts on some of these players that are hopefully getting opportunities at the higher level? Let's go to TJ first.
I think it's awesome. It definitely shows that football at this level, you can get the film, you can get the looks. Especially, we talked about it before with a lot of just the direct, with the motion man and also coverage wise on the defensive side, it's like a direct copy of the CFL game to an extent. So it's just really good to see guys getting the opportunity, guys that have gotten noticed, guys who have been playing good for their teams at the arena and indoor level specifically, and they're getting looks, which is awesome to me. And that's the point. That's a major point of why they play the game and why we get so excited every time, the UFL, pops up and says they're trying to stick around, because it's more opportunities for guys. Because let's face it, we've already established that out of the total in the NFL and even CFL, how many athletes are left out. So it's just showing to me that the overall process is working, and that the leagues that we follow are legit. They do have real ballers.
Completely agree on that front. Krish, what are your thoughts about some of these moves? Specifically Wimbush, I thought that was a big one.
Yeah, someone the other day asked me about Vegas and kind of what their culture is, right? And I said three things, man: character, I would say consistency, and commitment. I think those are the type of guys Coach Davis looks for, and Antonio Wimbush is a perfect example of that, right? His ability to stay consistent for 2 seasons with them is insane. Like he never had a drop off in production, and so I'm really happy. He's a great guy. He's a former military vet. I think he really deserves this opportunity, and I think his work ethic and his ability to translate to the next level, I think he's going to do great things in the CFL. And I think this speaks to Coach Davis. I give him a lot of crap, but his player development program, I mean, this is the 9th guy they've sent up to CFL or something this offseason? That says a lot about how, the connections he has. Like, if you're a good player, players don't choose to come to Vegas. Vegas chooses you. And I think that's a huge thing. It's a huge deal. So I'm I'm looking forward to seeing who else. I hope some of our guys get an opportunity. Guys for us, man, like Smoke Monday, DJ Daniels, and, Marquise Waters. I mean, now Marquise Waters is with Vegas, but I still consider him, part of us till next season. But I hope guys continue to get opportunities, and it shows. It shows which guys can move up based on how they play and the effort they put in on the field.
Absolutely. Any other IFL moves you guys wanted to discuss before we move on to the AF1 and bring on our first guest for the morning?
No, I just want to talk about the whole, I wanted to get you guys' opinion on, like, tampering, with Max Myler and that whole situation, and that's wild to me.
Man, TJ, I'll let you start on the list, but just for anybody watching who was not aware of the situation, Max Myler, the IFL MVP in 2025, had decided to sign with the Arizona Rattlers on the first day of free agency. So that's always an interesting thought process when you see players, ink a deal that quick. I know there's a little bit less negotiation at this level due to the pay and whatnot, but that's always a little suspicious. So, TJ, what are your thoughts on that? And I mean, you've been a coach, man. How likely is it that this deal all got done in 24 hours?
Well, I mean, you never say never, but nah, there's usually unless they gave him the entire barn, you know, then it there was probably some talks before the technical legal talking period. I mean, let's just be honest here. I mean, it happens everywhere. You know, NFL, CFL, arena, indoor football. It happens everywhere. It just depends on if you get caught or not, in my opinion. You know, it's a different landscape because, like you said, Sam, about the pay scale and everything at this level. But yeah, usually when deals get done that quick, and it's not even say like a two-man race, it's literally just one team, boom, there it is, done. It was usually pretty much agreed to before they could sign it. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you.
Yeah, that was kind of my thought as well. I lean very heavily toward the fact that there was conversations beforehand. Now, keep in mind, there are very, very creative ways to get around actually talking to a player as a coach or a member of the organization, right? Being aware of your players' connections can be a very valuable tool in the recruiting aspect of things. And I'm pretty sure that if anybody really dug into the situation, that's probably how this was done. There was probably some back channel information, traded back and forth, via players saying, hey, come play with me in Arizona. We can put you in a great position to move up and whatever the conversation may have been. But yeah, I would probably say that there were some conversations before it was 100% legal. And granted, like I said, maybe it wasn't a coach, but I'm willing to bet somebody from Arizona reached out, or somebody that was planning to go to Arizona was reaching out, or something of the sort. But any
especially
other
with how
IFL
long,
topics?
especially with how long they've been around for, and then Kevin Guy on top of it and everything else. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I would say if anybody knows how to work the system a little bit, it would be Kevin Guy for sure. Anything else, Krish?
Yeah, I just think Kevin Guy, he does a good job, replacing personnel. Obviously, Dalton Snead going and getting the MVP. But I look at the receiver room. They lost Donovan Ali to Albany, and that to me was a significant loss, right? Because I think Donovan Ali was poised for a breakout season in 2026 for the Rattlers. What did they do? They went and signed Arlen Bruce from Northern Arizona, and that's a power move for them because Arlen Bruce, last 4 games of last season, he really started to pop. So I'm really looking forward to what Arlen Bruce is going to do this year with Arizona, and I think they'll continue to add pieces. I see a couple more guys from Green Bay coming over, to Arizona. I can see, Andre Williams maybe, Kemo Clark, maybe some of those guys make the move over. But I think this is a new era for Green Bay, and I'm excited to see how they respond in free agency.
That's completely fair.
Like, why wouldn't you go out and call a guy like Skylar Perry? That would be my first phone call. Skylar Perry, go call guys who have already been in your system. So
Makes sense to me. All right, we're going to go ahead and transition and invite on our first guest. But before we do that, we're going to hit a quick commercial, and we will be right back with a very special guest from the Nashville Cats, Mr. Darren Arbet. right, we are back with the legend himself, Mr. Coach Darren Arbett. Coach, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm very excited to have you on. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, the honor is all ours. Honestly, you have been one of the coaches that has been around the AF1 for the past couple of seasons that we haven't talked to, which is kind of just how it's worked. But here you are, so we're very excited to have you on this morning. TJ, I'm gonna let you kick off the questions this time, buddy.
Hi, Mr. Arbett. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
You've been a coach for a very long time. I've been watching you since I got into the sport. Last season, early on, I mean, obviously the ending, you didn't quite finish it off the way you wanted to, but early on, it was a rough start, but you were able to right the storm and make a run out of it. You know, what what things in your experience really helped get through the rough start last year and led you to making a run all the way to a championship appearance?
The players and the coaches believing. We got a late start. Really didn't put the team together until a few weeks before camp started. So Coach Fisher knew we were going to have a tough start, but he just wanted us to be competitive at the end. I thought the players bought into it, the coaches bought into it, and did a tremendous job just sticking together and through all that adversity and making things happen at the end.
Very nice. Talk to me a little bit about your quarterback situation this past season. You started the season with Corey Curtis, Jake Dunaway. Both of those guys have played at a very high level, but didn't necessarily make the transition to arena football as quickly or as seamlessly as some of us may have thought they would. But then you jump over to first Rakeem Cato and then ultimately Tyler Kolka. And finally, when Tyler Kolka kind of entered the lineup, it seemed like you guys just hit a groove, and all of a sudden the Cats took off. I mean, kind of work us through that progression from the first two guys in Dunaway and Curtis all the way up to Kolka.
Yeah, Dunaway and Curtis, that was me. Started late, really didn't have a lot of time with them. So that was more on me than them. Cato's a great player. I just think he had some friends over in Salina, and it just kind of worked out better for him over there. And then Coker came in. He was an interesting young man, threw the ball very well, was dicing us up on defense in practice. And we were looking for a quarterback, and we were talking our meeting, and I said, "Hey, what about this Coker kid?" And they go, "Well, I don't know." And so let's give him a shot. And we gave him a shot. And gosh, he just took off, came out of nowhere. He just loves playing. I mean, where we practice at, they have kids in there after our practices, and he's asking them, "Hey, you guys need an arm?" and wants to throw the ball to them. So he just loves playing the game.
I have a very high opinion of Tyler, a great guy, and I was very excited to see him find some success with you guys this past season. And he's kind of one of the good guys in the sports world, overall, just a great guy. But Krish, do you have any questions for Coach?
Yeah, Coach Arbett, one of my questions for you is on the defensive side of the football. Is defensive coordinator Terry Foster returning, and do you anticipate adding any coaches to the staff this year?
Yeah, we're in the process of hiring someone to do our defense. Um, and we should have that done hopefully by the end of this week coming up.
Interesting. Can I ask why the transition?
It was something that both sides wanted to do, and it was something that uh, Coach Fisher and I sat down and uh, just made it for the team. It needed to be done for Coach, for him to move on and do some things for himself. He's a great coach. We wouldn't have played in that championship game without him. Put the team together. Just a tremendous coach.
Definitely. TJ, do you have any more questions?
Yeah, with all the new teams, coming in this upcoming season, do you feel like competition is going to be even at a higher level this year?
You always got to have competition. That's what pushes everyone, even me. I had some great coaches. Coach Kerry Lachlan, big time veteran, NFL guy, CFL guy. He's my assistant head coach. He pushes me all the time. Anthony Payton, our offensive coordinator, Terrence Quattlebaum, our receiver coach, some really good coaches, and the players is the same thing. We're bringing in pretty good players and to push each other. Clint Gum is our president of football operations, and he's signing these guys, and I think he's doing a tremendous job.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you guys have a stacked roster this year. Was there a conversation following last season that, there were positions that you needed to upgrade and that you were going to be very aggressive in free agency? I mean, maybe it's just from the outside looking in, but it feels like you guys really identified players that you felt could elevate this organization and went out and kind of acted very quickly to bring these guys in.
Yeah, Clint's vision was great. He wanted to get every position, not just one place he felt we needed to upgrade. We didn't win the championship. And anytime you don't win the championship, everyone's looked at, even me. And I understand that. So he went out and he's put together a pretty good roster. Now we just have our work cut out trying to have everyone play together and believe in each other and play it, be as one.
Definitely makes sense. Krish, do you have anything?
Yeah, Coach, I bet when you go into 2026, you look at Kentucky and Coach Walker and everything he's building over there. How proud of you? How proud of him are you?
We talk every day. That's my guy, Coach Walker. Has done a great job, and now I have another coach who coached with me, Corey Mayfield in Beaumont. Both those young men, gosh, they work so hard, and they've done a good job putting teams together and winning championships. Proud of them.
Seems like there's a long line of championships from coaches that have come from your coaching tree and kind of that San Jose Sabercat group. So it's awesome to see how they're kind of sprinkled throughout. TJ, do you have any other questions for Coach?
Yeah, given your long history in the sport, how does the AF1 starting to build up now? Does it feel reminiscent of earlier leagues that you've been a part of, or does this feel like something bigger, better, and different?
I like what's going on. I think anytime Jerry Kurz is involved, I'm a big Jerry Kurz fan. Um, Jeff Fisher, he's doing a tremendous job putting it out there as well. I think the league is growing. I think there's a lot of growth that we're going to have this year, and there's some good teams coming in the league.
Absolutely. It's been a very interesting offseason with some of the teams they've added. We got a couple questions in the chat here. Brian Shoemaker asks, anything to share from the recent AF1U? Is there any rule changes coming? Any business additions or anything changing on the business side of the league?
So basically, all we do is talk and get suggestions, and then it'll go to the ownership group to make changes. So I wouldn't know what they're going to change. There was a lot of things talked about to make the game better, and some of the things I like, some of the things I didn't like. But it's going to be up to the owners, and they know how we feel about it.
That makes sense. Love that you at least have a say, or at least a bit of a say in there. With the move to Clarksville, does Nashville now have the best home field advantage in the AF1?
Love it. Yeah, the first game we went there, and it was just a lot of people, and one of the players came and go, "Gosh, coach, this is a cool atmosphere. Great atmosphere. People love the game. It's loud. It's the way arena football is supposed to be."
Yeah, it definitely seemed like Clarksville definitely supported the Cats pretty well last year, and it was awesome to see. He also says, what about the return of the Rouge?
Talked about it. It'd be interesting to see what happens. There's good and bad about it, but like I said, once again, it's not up to me. It's up to the owners. They're going to vote, and if they want it, they'll do it. If not, I'm okay with it. Whatever the rules are, we'll be ready to go.
Definitely makes sense. We got one more question here from Jim Wetlaufer. Any hints where new teams will be that have not been announced yet?
I'm excited to hear as well. I think we all hear the rumors about all these different teams coming in, and some coaches are getting phone calls, but until there's ink on the paper, there's really nothing there.
Great point. I think in years past, the AFL and the AF1 were a little preemptive in some of their announcements. And I think from the outside looking in, they're playing it a lot closer to the vest this season, which I think is a good thing. Don't announce anything until you know it's concrete. So I think that's a great thing. Krish, any more questions for Coach?
No, Coach, I appreciate your time, and I look forward to 2026.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for your time today, Coach. We really appreciate you coming on and discussing, the Cats with us. I did have one more question that I wanted to ask you before we let you get out of here. What brought you back to arena football? I know you were out of the game for a long time. I'm sure you had that itch quite a few times over the years. What ultimately brought you back? First with Bay Area in 2023, and then ultimately with the Cats.
Just miss football. I'm a football coach. Love coaching. Had moved and retired and was playing golf, but there's nothing like football. I always say that. It's a great game, and when you look at the game, you can't recreate it. You can work at all these different places, but what job can you have where you work as hard as you can all week, watch all that film, study, think you know what the other team is doing, and depending on that scoreboard, your mood's going to be one way or the another. After that game, it's just an unbelievable game, and I love what it brings to you. The challenge is tremendous every week.
I love that. And it definitely seems like, specifically with coaches, they have a hard time getting away from the game eventually. And some move into the front office and all that fun stuff. So regardless of what your future holds for you, Coach, it's been a pleasure watching you come back to the game and kind of get back involved again. And so we'll definitely be following along, and we really appreciate you coming on today and wish you nothing but luck in 2026. TJ, do you have any questions before we let him get out of here?
Nope. Just good luck, Coach, on this upcoming season, and thank you so much for coming on.
Okay, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and thank you so much for your patience waiting backstage.
Okay, thanks.
Once again, that was head coach Darren Arbett from the Nashville Cats. Very excited to have him join us today. That's been something that's kind of been in the works for a couple of weeks. He's a very busy man, calling games, recruiting a roster, all kinds of stuff. So it was very nice of him to come on this morning. We're going to run a quick commercial, and then we'll be back to discuss some NAL news. As of right now, it looks like a couple of our guests have not arrived yet. So we're just going to go ahead and keep rolling on and truck along. All right, we are back to discuss some of the NAL moves that have been going on. One of my favorites that has come out as of recently was the announcement that the Omaha Beef have signed quarterback Tyler Lauenstein. Big fan of this guy. He's previously played with the Beef a couple of years ago, spent some time with Sioux City, started some games last year for Sioux City. Very versatile player. He's played multiple different positions over the years. Krish, we're going to you first on this one since you are kind of the resident beef hype guy. So, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this is a big move. I think anytime you have a team, you need to look at your deficiencies, right? And you need to look at where you're weak. Demery Croft, I've spoken openly. Demery Croft is not a passing quarterback. I don't think he can throw the football over 15 yards consistently. I don't. So I think he's a short yardage type guy. He's a great athlete, but I don't, as a passer, I'm not really sold on him, right? And so they went out and they identified someone who's a good passer who projects really well. Tyler Lossteen has a really good arm. He can throw the ball, 50, 60 yards, right? He just needs to be in a system that works for him and that utilizes his skills. Right, Sioux City system offensively. I mean, Scott Jensen. I've spoken openly about him. Right, like they run the same things. If Coach Negron and CJ and all them get creative, yeah, I think Tyler will be successful. He'll have a great online. He'll have a better online than he did last year. He'll have great receivers to throw to, right? And the running back room is still under construction, right? In my opinion, so I just think Tyler has a lot more things to work with in Omaha. He lives in Omaha. So I just think it's a great move altogether. I think it's an open battle. I really do. It's between him and Demery Croft. And I think Demery Croft will start week 1, but that schedule is tough. So don't be surprised if we see Tyler by week 3.
Yeah, you were definitely one of the people trumpeting the fact that Tyler could start some games this year for Omaha, and I wouldn't be necessarily entirely shocked to see him start. I don't know if he's going to necessarily usurp Demery Croft, however, so it'll be interesting to see exactly how that all goes. But
you got 2 sodas?
but I'm definitely excited to see how it all works out for Tyler. I think it's a good situation for him to go there. I think it's also good for the Beef, right? The Beef signed PJ Walker, who's coming off a broken leg. He obviously still has some wild.
PJ Thomas. PJ Walker is in the CFL.
Dear Lord, I am so sorry, PJ. I can't believe I just said that. PJ Thomas, you're right. PJ Walker is with Calgary in the CFL. I apologize, PJ. That is unforgivable. I've talked to PJ so much, I should know better. But yeah, so anyway, PJ is coming off an injury. He's still got some time left in his rehab. So I think it's a good decision for them to bring in a third quarterback. I also think that they are in a situation where they could potentially keep both guys, both PJ and Tyler, or TJ. Both of those guys can play multiple positions. So there's a chance that you could keep 3 quarterbacks realistically. So that's a whole nother facet that we could be looking at. TJ, what are your thoughts on the quarterback position for the Beef? Starting with Demery Croft and kind of working your way down. How confident are you that they have a playoff caliber quarterback room right now?
Well, I'm going to put it like this. I feel much better about this quarterback room than I did the room at the start of last season. I'll just be honest with you. You're bringing guys back, who have been with the team. I think, like Krish said, the offensive line is going to be a lot better this year. It's going to be more solidified. And, let's just face it here. Tommy is retired. So he's not going to be able to come back and save us, like he did last season. So I think that I don't necessarily think you'll see a quarterback change. I feel like either one of those 2 guys could probably start for the entire season. I have a lot of belief in that quarterback room. I really do.
So TJ, let me pose this question to you, right? And realistically, bias aside, you feel better about this quarterback room. You think both these guys are better than Lorenzo Brown right now. You believe that?
With how last season went down, I have more promise in my mind on how things will develop and go. Yes.
I think we have somebody who wants to chime in on this topic. What's up, CJ?
What's up, fellas?
What's up?
What's your take of the Omaha
Give
Beef
respect
quarterback
to that
room?
O-line. You heard me.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. I said it on the last time I was on the show. We are not trying to replace Tommy Armstrong. Tommy is a one of one. He's a Hall of Famer. He is the GOAT when it comes to quarterbacks. in Omaha Beef history. Lorenzo Brown did a great job, and you know his number was called, and he did what he had to do. But I also feel that uh, I feel between Demery and Tyler, we're going to do just fine. I I wanted to jump on here because I was watching and heard Krish doing his normal thing of trying to find something to make a hot take out of, but at the end of the day, that's what he does. Um, support it no matter what. But I look. People can have their opinions, can have their viewpoints. That's why we have camp. That's why we play the games. You know, Demery and his situations that he's had, he has performed. He has stepped in. He's handled his what he's needed to do. He's played at the highest of levels when it comes to playing in the Big Ten, playing against NFL caliber players, and did just fine. Tyler has made the most of the opportunities he's been given, and he's shown that he can play at a high level. But it's gonna be it's going to be a great show for the Beef fans. I you know we're not the type of coaches where if a guy has a bad game, we're going to immediately look for a reason to replace him. Because I feel like in the indoor games specifically, most of these guys, I mean, heck, I was one of them. You come to this game because you were already passed over for something else. You were passed over because of this team or this league or this player, or you made this mistake or you did this or you did that. So to me, indoor football is really just a league of second opportunities. So, I mean, yeah, Chris can have his belief that uh, Demery can't throw a deep ball and can't do this or can't do that. And, look, the man threw for 1,800 yards in 8 games. So, I mean, can't do that if you're throwing 5-yard hitches all the way down the field. Uh, so just wanted to hop on with that. Yes, our offensive line is going to be pretty dang good. The creativity that we're gonna show in our run game with Demery, with Tyler, with David Ross, with some things that we're keeping hidden right now. Devon Harris, and then we have some wrinkles that we're gonna show people when we get into the season. So you know, I think that's the beautiful thing. You don't have to have all the prettiest signings. You don't have to have all the big flashy this and that because at the end of the day, it's about what team can come together to win. I believe we could all sit here and say, you know, and all respect to Coach Solo and what they had, but Beaumont didn't have all of the biggest, flashiest signings. They had an unproven quarterback. They had, a stall of running backs. But they still won. So I don't think you have to submit to the idea that you have to make a big splash signing in every position. So, and then we've beefed up some other positions too. That's going to make it a little bit tougher for other teams to have success. So we're excited about that too.
I agree, and I'm really, happy that you watched the show and you took my advice and you signed a linebacker and Kyrie Bynum, man. Talk about that. That's so exciting.
Yeah, so we signed Kyrie Bynum. We were given his information from another coach who recommended that we go after him. And so, we hold on. Sorry, my dogs are out and my puppy looks like he was about to go on crackhead mode. But yeah, so we signed Bynum through a recommendation. He's played in the IFL. He's done really well. Was going to play in San Antonio this year. Had a couple things come up. Um, you know, We feel really good about the guys we have. It gives us, once again, the biggest thing we talked about, Coach Negron and I consistently, is position flexibility. That gives us the opportunity to move guys into new spots and allow them the opportunity to showcase their abilities.
Did you guys make a move at linebacker because Krish has been critical of you?
No. Whatever the reports may say or the sources may say, we made that move solely on the fact that he's a really good football player and it gave us the ability to have flexibility.
Of course. I had to ask, Krish,
Oh, yeah.
Krish has been very critical of the running back and linebacker room in Omaha.
Oh, that's all right. I mean, Krish is critical about a lot of things. So, and you
I
can't
mean,
say
I'll
he's
be
and
right though. I'll be
you
right.
can't say he's the resident Omaha Beef hype man, because all he talks about is every other team. So, um, you know, look, at the end of the day, Kyer Bynum's a heck of a football player, but so is Craig Travis, so is Brian Price. Uh, so's David Ross and Devon Harris and all these guys. If they couldn't play, we wouldn't bring them here. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. Like, we're not a brand new upstart organization that is trying to find players to fill a roster. Like, we are the longest the longest continuously running indoor football team in the country. So, you know, it does make it kind of easy to find players, but also at the same time, like, we're not going to overpay for players. We're not going to chase names just to have names on a piece of paper. We're trying to find guys who fit the mindset that we want. So yeah, it might not be the prettiest signings having some of these guys. That's all right. I mean, I believe in what we're doing, believe in the process and the guys we have, because they're gonna show people that they're here for a reason. They're here to win football games. We've brought in guys from the IFL. We brought in guys you know, from big college programs. We brought in guys. We brought in guys who, have proven that they can win. So, um, that's what we're looking at. I mean, like I said, we beefed up our defensive line. We have Bynum running around at linebacker. We have Brian Price who could play linebacker, Craig Travis who could play linebacker. Brian Price can play low safety, or, essentially that jack position. We have Brandon Munoz and Rudy Naguni, and, we just signed Devontae Wright. We have, just a bunch of guys that are gonna make it tough. So yeah, and they fit the mold. At the end of the day, they fit. They're about work, and that's what we want.
Okay, let's transition a little bit and talk about some of the other teams. What team stands out to you so far in terms of teams you have to game plan for defensively so far?
Yeah, I mean, just basing it solely on, I don't know everyone that's getting signed, but basing it on coaches and then just like overall players. I mean, Salina's doing a heck of a job building their roster. I know Coach O'Neill's going to do a great job building that team, preparing them. Um, I think they've done a good job. Colorado's going to always be tough. They've signed back some guys that have been there for a few years, so they're kind of a part of the DNA for Colorado. Just Coach Shaw get the most out of those guys that he can. He always does. So I mean, they've been solid so far. Just like every team, there's a lot of teams that have some pieces in place, but then they're missing some pieces, like some key pieces, if that makes sense. So, there's some teams that have announced running backs and D linemen and receivers and different things, but don't have a quarterback yet, or don't have some of those key positions kind of locked down. So until you kind of figure out what those are going to be, it kind of makes it tough to gauge how good some of these teams can be. Because in indoor football, any level of football, you're only going to go as far as your quarterback. So uh, I like to think that the two quarterbacks we have are pretty dang good. So I think we're pretty well positioned in that group.
I would like to add to this and say, man, I love the roster Sioux City building. My boy Coach Loban's on a heater right now. I mean, I said Ed Crouch. If I had tryouts today, man, Ed Crouch is the top 2 quarterback in the NAL for me. I mean, he's a dog. He's next level. They got Carlos Thompson coming in. They got their receiving quarterback. I mean, it's gonna be a good year in Sioux City. I'm excited for what they got going. And then Colorado, like CJ said, I mean, I think they're so underrated going into the season. That team with Bissett with a full off season. Newbo coming back, and then they got Fagalo Russell and Stephen Fluker's pretty good. So I just think they just have a good team, and I'm excited to see Southwest too. I'm excited to see what Southwest. Southwest been awfully quiet, so I hope they have a quarterback coming up their sleeve soon.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the teams in this league, I think the NAL competition wise is getting just better and better. And like I said, a team like Southwest Coach Thomas is going to do a great job. They just don't have a ton of guys announced yet, so it's tough to make a fair evaluation of their roster when they're got 4 or 5 guys signed. So, but I know that they're going to continue to sign guys, and they're going to sign good quality players. So just like Colorado is, and just like everyone is. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I said it during one of the first times I came on here, as the league kind of pieced together. I'm not worried about what everyone else does, because at the end of the day, we all have to play the games. We all have to show up on Saturdays, and it's going to be a battle no matter what. But by midway point of the season, you're going to start seeing who the contenders are and the pretenders are. So if you fall into one of the categories, you need to fight like hell to make sure you're in the other category. So I'm not too worried about what everyone's doing, because I got to worry about the team I'm working with. I can't worry about, excuse me, the weather here in Nebraska is a little crazy right now. But I can't worry about what everyone's signing, who's signing where, who's doing what, who's paying what, who's whatever, because it's not my team. We're building the best Omaha Beef team we can, and we hope everyone's building the best Southwest Kansas Storm, the best Colorado Spartans, the best Pueblo Punisher, whoever, building the best team you can build, because at the end of the day, it's going to make it that much better for the team that wins the championship to say, man, this is what we had to go through to win. I believe the Omaha Beef are the only team, and I could be wrong, but I believe the Omaha Beef are the only team in the NAL who plays every single team in the NAL during the season. So, we play Colorado twice, Sioux City twice, but then we play everyone else at least one time. So, we're going to get to see everyone.
It'll certainly be an interesting season, that's for sure. We talked about it off camera, and we could kind of hash it out a little bit here for everybody. But you and I have talked about the fact that the level of competition at the quarterback position has been particularly good. When you look across the league, there's a lot of talented quarterbacks. Whether it's Andre Sale in Colorado, your group in Omaha. We've talked about Sioux City and what they've done at quarterback so far. Krish, I'm curious of your thoughts. Who do you think right now stands out as the current front runner for you to be like the best quarterback statistically in the league?
Oh, I've said it many times. Who's winning MVP? Andre Sale. If he comes back by a mile. Andre Sale, I mean, he's by far the best quarterback in this league. 21 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year, and he wasn't even healthy. Full off season, he's healthy. He works so hard. He will be the best quarterback in this league. He's a dog. He's next level. He did it in Tulsa for years. I'm big on Andre Sale, and then Ed Crouch would be my number 2 so far. I mean, it's still early in the process, so we don't know. But, yeah, I love Andre Sale. I think, yeah.
All right. TJ, what are your thoughts so far?
Ooh, this is going to be rough to say, but I think I have to agree with Krish. That didn't feel right.
That might be a first time ever. I'm not sure. CJ, what are your thoughts overall? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're a little bit biased towards the group you've built, but like looking across the league, do you think this is a better group overall than it was in previous seasons?
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard. It's always hard for me to compare the old NAL to the new NAL just because it is different, man. Like, you know, when you
Dramatically.
had when you had Jacksonville and and Albany and San Antonio, like it was just it was different. Like just plain and simple. But top to bottom, like you said, Crouch is a really, really good quarterback. And, if Sale goes back to Colorado, he's a really good quarterback. Like, there's so many talented players at that position. And then there's guys who haven't even been announced for some of these teams yet who are probably going to be really good players as well. But yeah, I'd be foolish not to sit on here and stand up for my guy and say that my guy can't be the MVP. We talk about stats and we talk about this and that and a third and 21 touchdowns and 4 interceptions and was barely healthy and all that. Like that's a great stat line. But let's not forget that my guy is a rookie, his first ever season playing indoor football, came in through for 18 touchdowns, 1800 yards, 26 touchdowns, ran for 400 yards and 12 more touchdowns and was all IFL rookie team in 8 games. So, let's just not throw out stats without context either. So, I'm gonna stand up for my guy. I'm gonna always vouch for my guy. I'm gonna always believe that every player that we sign can be an all league player, but it's up to them to put in the work. Just like every coach is gonna believe that the players that they sign are the best players in the league. So, I got nothing but respect. I competed against most of these top level players. I've played against Woodley and Newbold and Sam Hammond. And I played against those guys, so I've got a high level of respect for them. I played against Jug out in Colorado half a dozen times. Like I've got a lot of respect for a lot of these guys. So it's never me disrespecting them as a player or anything like that. I'm just gonna believe in my guys, and just like any other coach would.
I feel like what Colorado did though is they like went out and they addressed the weakness, which was their running game towards the end of last season. After Thurlow Wilkins left, I felt like they kind of didn't have a running game, and so now they signed Trayvon Mosley back, who was DB, but he was playing some running back, and then they signed Devontae Jackson, who was a Harlan Hill Trophy finalist. So like those are big moves for Colorado. I'm just so high on the Spartans this year, man. I'm so excited to watch that team play. I think
Yeah.
it is amazing.
No, absolutely. And look, I played against Devontae Jackson in college, so I know he's the real deal. He played at the University of West Georgia, went on to have, a stint in the NFL. So I know Devontae Jackson's the real deal. But once again, what I've learned as a player and now as a coach, that if you fixate someone's worth off of things that are not current, then you could end up being upset. Like he played in college the same time I did. That was almost 8 years removed from when we graduated, 9 years removed from when we graduated. Being a Harlan Hill finalist is an elite, award opportunity, but it doesn't always mean you're going to translate to be a great player. Just like if you were a backup or something in college, doesn't mean you can't be a successful pro. I mean, I didn't start 44 straight games in college, and I like to think I had a pretty solid career. So I don't get caught up in what people did outside of indoor because it doesn't always translate. Being just like if there's certain skills and traits that will translate because if you can run, you can run. If you can catch, you can catch. But it is different, running on a 50-yard field with walls versus running, in a wide open NFL stadium. It's just different. It's going to be different no matter who's carrying the ball. Um, so yeah, I do think that Colorado's doing a good job addressing their needs, addressing their issues. By the end of the day, we don't play them until like week 5 or week 6. I can't worry about them. A lot of things can change between now and then. So, the only team I'm worried about is Pueblo because that's who we play week 1.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm excited for Pueblo. I think they have a good. I mean, I'm, let me rephrase that. I'm excited to see the product they put on the field. I think James Terry at head coach. I think he's going to do decent things. Because I'm referring to James Terry as the head coach for the rest of the season. So it's easier. He's an adult, and I refer to adults in leadership positions. But no, man, I'm just excited. I'm really excited to see what Pueblo does. I think they'll go 4-6 and maybe miss the playoffs. That's my prediction. So,
our number one supporter of the show, Ricky Burt, says, "Hey CJ, how many Heisman winners didn't have a successful NFL career?"
I mean, there's been quite a few.
More than I can count, that's for sure.
Yeah. So, like, just look, that's from the man, the myth, the legend himself. So, and just because you have success in college doesn't mean you're going to have success at any level professionally. I mean, it's just different. Like, yes, he played in the NFL. Respect, a lot of respect. He's playing against elite dudes, but it's different when you step between those walls. It is a lot. I've played with plenty of guys that were in the NFL, CFL, UFL, played against guys like, and they will all say the same thing. I mean, look, man, I I played against my rookie year when I was in the original AAL. Like, I lined up and blocked Greg Hardy for an entire game. Like, that dude was a Pro Bowler. That's more than just like I stepped on NFL turf, NFL grass. Like, that dude reached the Pro Bowl. And even he would sit there and say playing in an arena is completely different than playing outdoors. And you would sit there and think, oh, you played Greg Hardy, you throw the ball 60 times, 50 times in an arena game, you're going to give up a ton of. He got me one time out of 45 pass attempts. And that's not the like flex, but it's like if a dude that played at the highest level and played it very well can say that it's going to be a little bit different, I trust that anyone who adjusts from the outdoor game to the indoor game is going to say it's different.
Yeah, I mean that's fair, especially because of the speed of everything. Outdoors you might have 3-4 seconds to get to a quarterback. Indoors you might have 1 to 2. Realistically, you're putting one move on an offensive lineman, and if you're not at the quarterback, you're probably not getting a sack. So, totally different game, especially from a pass rush perspective. Guys who are high level pass rushers indoor are probably going to project outdoor really well because they have a quick first step. They're really good with their first pass rush move, and they can get to the quarterback. So, I mean, that is one position I feel translates very well. Anything else that we wanted to cover on the NAL in general?
Yeah, CJ, you hit it. You hit it up earlier about the differences between the old NAL and the current NAL. Do you feel the current look of the NAL, or at least the trajectory, is the highest it's ever been?
Um, I think when you add really good brands like Omaha and Sioux City and Salina and Southwest Kansas, and I throw Colorado into that mix because they're going on year 3. Yeah, year 3. They've shown that they have a good product, when you have good brands, I think that makes a good league. And I think that's what carried the old NAL for such a long time. The Cobras during that time were a consistent team, a really good team. Uh, you had Jacksonville, who's Jacksonville. You had Columbus, um, and then you mix it. Orlando was pretty solid. San Antonio, West Texas was a 1-year wonder. Um, but you also had your failures. You had your New Jersey flights. You had your and I don't
New York.
classify them as a failure, but like the Maine Mammoths could have been a great organization. They just didn't
Yeah.
fall through. You had Lehigh Valley, who was a prominent organization, and you know fell through. Like, so there you're gonna always have that, but I think the NAL is trending into a better direction because I think we're expanding the right way. We're slowly growing and not trying to throw in 5 teams and then hope that at least 3 of them stick, which has been the case before. Have played in both the old NAL and the current NAL. Like, um, yeah, some people are going to say the product looks a little watered down because some NAL fans miss the arena style, you know, the Iron Man, different things that the NAL used to do. But I think it's trending in a really positive direction, and I'm excited to see how 2026 plays out. But then I'm also excited to see how 2027 plays out, 2028, and so on and so forth. And like when some of these teams, have experience, like you really think about it, in 2 years, in 2 off seasons from now, we could be sitting here saying Colorado's in year 5. Pueblo's in year 3. Dallas is in year 3. Amarillo's in year 3. Like, sounds a lot more steady than, all right, this team's in year 1, this team's in year 1, this team's in year 1. But like, I think it's a different product. I hate that people kind of compare it to the old CIF. Yes, I know that there are some teams that carried over, but you know, I do think that the product overall is a little bit better than what the CIF used to put out. Um, Me personally, like, having played in it and watching, yeah, see, look, if Coach Davis, there's a couple people when I get on the show that if they chime in and agree with me, and really validates the thoughts. And obviously Ricky's one, but Coach Davis, if he validates what I'm saying, I'm on the right track. And of course, Krish isn't on the screen to read it, so
It's okay. We'll read it for him. It's true. I can think of
Oh
lots
no,
of
I
great
see it. I
college
see it. I
players,
see it. Look,
NFL draft
no, no,
picks
no.
that didn't translate indoors. Most comes
That's
down to coaching and the player wanting to adjust.
Like from a championship head coach.
yeah.
Oh, I think Krish froze just in time for him to try and argue facts. The travel of the NAL this season is a huge advantage towards the team's financials. 100% agree.
Yeah.
I talked about it before, and actually somebody recently asked me, why did Southwest Kansas and Salina move from the AF1? Because a lot of people, I guess, when they look at these things, it's all appearances to them, right? So
Yep.
why would you want to leave the AF1, which is one of the premier leagues, quote unquote, for the NAL, which some people view as a step down? Well, look at a map. Pull up a map of the NAL right now, and it becomes very apparent why you would want to make those business moves. Your travel is in a square, basically from Iowa to Colorado to Texas to Louisiana, and you don't go outside that square at any point.
I mean, I think the furthest trip we have this year, we go to Amarillo. I want to say it's like 10 hours, which is still a hike, don't get me wrong. But that's a heck of a lot better than what in 2025, this past season, when I was in Wheeling and we had to travel to Colorado, and go through that whole that whole debacle. But that's a heck of a lot easier. Or in 2024 when I was in Carolina and we had to travel to Idaho, and Colorado. So I think it's smart for the league to be centralized and work its way out. I think the league would struggle, just like a lot of leagues will struggle, if you have East Coast and West Coast and you have to travel in between. Um, and I think one of the things, as a guy who played with the Nets, I enjoyed the Nets, but I think it's unique to the AF1 game. I don't think every league needs nets. I don't think the NAL needs nets. The IFL sure as heck doesn't need nets. Um, but like when the NAL had the nets the last year in 24, half the kickers could barely get it to the nets. So you just had an extra, $10,000 to $30,000 expense to get those things built, put up every week, whatever, and you were barely using them. It wasn't game plan to use the nets like it is in the AF1. or like it was in the AFL in its heyday. So I think, that probably plays a little bit of decision. Money talks in this business. Who like I talk with Ricky all the time about like the importance of money, and he's teaching me so much about the ins and outs and how to be like a smart businessman when it comes to this indoor game. Because there's ultimate goals for me of working to become a head coach, and when my time comes to step down, like do some general manager, front office stuff. So I learned a lot from him coaching a grown, on just the business side of it. And when you really see those costs on paper of how much it takes to set up a field and do that kind of stuff for some of these venues, it makes sense why some teams don't make it past 1-2 years.
Completely agree. Krish is sneak commenting here because he can't say it on screen, but Andre Sale will win NAL MVP. Lock of the century. Okay. Before teams choose leagues, it is always smart to look at travel. Business is business. 100%. That's one of the first considerations you should make before you go into any league, in my personal opinion. Sorry, fellas. I apologize. My son's telling me I'm talking too loud. So, apparently we need to keep it down. Sorry, guys. No, but anyway, yeah, I mean, it seems like something that oftentimes gets overlooked. I've talked about it a little bit in the AIF currently. They have teams all over the country, and I don't understand how they're going to survive financially with that model. They've got a team in Pennsylvania, got 2 teams in Texas, got 2 teams in like Michigan and Ohio. It's just it's
in Wyoming.
Yeah, it's very, very spread out. And I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm just saying it's going to be a lot tougher than all of your teams are centrally located. So I definitely see the logic of the NAL, and I can understand why you don't like the CIF comparisons. But at the same time, overall design-wise, this seems like a CIF remake, basically.
Yeah, I think it's just I think it's more so like a selfish thing or a personal thing of like, when people used to talk about the leagues, it was always, obviously the AFL, IFL, then it was like the NAL, and then people would put the CIF at like the bottom. So it's like we're not just a league that just takes anybody. We just want heartbeats and things like that. Like we're a really good competitive league. So that's the only reason I say that. Not to bash the CIF or what it did or anything like that, but we're hoping that it's not, we don't have teams in like Topeka and some of those teams that were at the tail end of the CIF, Rapid City, some of those teams that were struggling to get attendance, and the product didn't always look great, or Wyoming, or some of those like Gillette, whatever they turned into. Like some of those teams had really good players and they didn't get a true chance to showcase their abilities because travel crushed everything, and they just, yeah, that's the only reason for it. Not to bash the CIF. I just, it's not the CIF with the NAL logo. I mean, it is technically because you don't have any original NAL teams here anymore, but it is what it is.
Well, I would point out that there was a point in time where the CIF was the only league from 2022 to 2023 to have the same 8 teams that they started with, the previous season. So the IFL couldn't say that, the NAL couldn't say that season. So I'm not saying, like, obviously we see how crazy it gets. Obviously teams are moving every year, teams are popping up every year. And then I felt like toward the end of the CIF, they had really kind of grown to be very stable, and then split apart, unfortunately. But I can understand why you don't like those comparisons. There were some rough years of the CIF for sure. Brian Shoemaker says, not a league specific question. Why do you feel there are so very few East Coast teams? While 20 years, most of the teams were from the East Coast. I think this boils down to cost, and I think TJ might be uniquely experienced in that aspect to talk on this. So I'll give him the floor.
Yeah, this is a question that we've talked about a lot off camera. I've even asked a couple owners and coaches this when I've done interviews with them. And, it comes down to economics. Because for the most part, it was a heavy kind of Central and East Coast sport for a while. But in the last, I'd say probably like decade or so, it's kind of traveled and become more prominent primarily out West. I think it is because they have more locations, more options, and the economy is just better in other areas of the country. In the East Coast, I mean, you've had a lot of teams, especially in the past couple years, either fail at launch or go 1, 2 years and shut down. Uh, you know, I think it's also the fact that on the East Coast, a lot of teams have also either left or folded, leaving the other guys, like we were just talking about with travel obligations and stuff, kind of on an island. So instead of having a group of 3 or 4 teams in their own unofficial, East Coast division, now there's only 1 or 2 teams left. Now they got to fly out or take a long bus every time they go to another team to an away game. So it's mostly when I've asked this question from owners and head coaches and stuff of teams, economics and just the face of the sport have been the primary answers I've been given in their opinions.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. Talk to me a little bit about like when you were with Reading or Reading and Lehigh Valley. Who were some of your guys' playing partners that made it a little bit easier on you at the time?
Oh man, well, with Reading, we did Reading my first year, we were semi-pro, and then the second year we were pro. So we relied on hardcore local brands. We had, local chiropractors, things like that. We just had different businesses have sponsorship for it and things like that. And then we also had a little bit of help from the league that we were in that year as well, with a couple of just blanket sponsorships, we'll say, for the whole league. Uh, with Lehigh Valley, man, we reached everywhere. I remember our general manager, he was super excited because he sold a sponsorship to a plumbing company for the Deuce, which I loved because it was hilarious. But we also had a lot of we had local towing company from Allentown, which was like 10 minutes from where the PPL Center was, where we played our home games. We also relied on a lot of local stores, deals with grocery stores and bakeries, things like that. Uh, but it was kind of Lehigh Valley, since we were more of a main team in one of the primary leagues when I was there. That was more of a classic mix of local and corporate sponsorship, if you will. Then, of course, the league, at that time, Siegfried was the commissioner. He was also very helpful in making sure, teams were getting what they needed in terms of, sponsorship and anything like that, or any advice, things like that. So, I'd say probably the biggest differences were between those two teams. My first year would probably be my first year in Reading, where since we were semi-pro, we really had to rely on a lot of pure local support. Whereas the 2 years I was with, Lehigh Valley and Reading as a pro team, we did a lot more mix of kind of more corporate and local combined.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. Just real quick, I wanted to ask everybody to please hit that like button. It doesn't matter where you're watching. That does a huge wonder for us trying to grow this platform. And it helps also, that platform recommend this to new viewers. So if you could hit that like button real quick, we'd really appreciate it. But I think we should probably transition to another league. At this point, we've spent a lot of time in the NAL. Is there any AF1 news that we haven't yet discussed that anybody wants to get to?
Yeah, I would just say the free agency. If maybe we can pull up the transaction wire. There was a couple notable moves that I saw, especially with Minnesota.
Oh Lord, here we go with Minnesota again. No, just kidding. I'm gonna play a quick commercial, and I will pull up those transactions for the AF1, and we'll discuss that. All right, so we'll go ahead and discuss the AF1 transactions now. If you hadn't hit that like button, make sure to go ahead and press it for us. We've only got 1 like so far. I would love to hit 10 by the end of this video. I think we can do it with your guys' help. So just go click that button. It's completely free. It takes you a couple seconds. But yeah, there's definitely been a couple significant moves as of late in the AF1. Based off the transactions that were posted yesterday, DeWandrick LaJordan Crockett has signed with Oregon instead of Oregon. Slight misspelling there on the AF1 website, which I'll go ahead and pull it up and show you guys here in a minute. Charles Hall, previously of Southwest Kansas, had a hell of a season last year, signed with Nashville. Clinton Jefferson and Jalen Phelps have signed with Kentucky. We'll go ahead and pull up those moves, and as well as some other moves over the past couple days. This week has been kind of crazy for AF1 transactions currently. There's been a lot going on. Minnesota in particular submitted like 10 transactions all in one day. On October 9th, Justin Collier signed with Washington. Any thoughts on any of these moves so far, fellas?
Well, seeing how one of those signings kind of came from our team, look, I'll always say this: if guys have an opportunity to do what they feel is best for their career, and maybe make a little bit more money, get in front of more eyes, do what they feel is best, I'm gonna always support that. I'm going to always support players, having the ability to find the situation that they feel best fits them. Okay, so I'm prefacing everything I'm saying with that, or what I'm about to say with that. But as a coach, as a former player, it kind of bothers me a little bit that for whatever reason, either it's another team throws money in front of your face, or they promise you this this, promise you the world, that on either side, whether it's a coach or a player, that there's not that line of communication of, hey, I'm signed somewhere, like I'm okay. Or, hey, we're looking at trying to sign this guy. It's going to be a better deal for him. Is that okay? And I don't expect everyone to do it that way, but that's just how I am. Like if I was going to, I'll use an example, and I know he wouldn't mind it, but Coach Wells out in Washington, he has a player that I didn't know was signed to his team, and I was talking to him, and I told Coach Wells immediately, I said, hey man, I didn't know. That's on me. I cut off communication with the guy because he signed. Like, it doesn't matter, he's in a different league. At the end of the day, to me, that's just the right way to do business. Just communicate about it, talk about it. Like if you sign a contract, like you signed a contract. It's not I signed a contract and I still want to explore other options. Because if that's the case, then don't sign the first contract. Like, I think there'd be a lot less issues if guys just said, hey, I'm going to wait to sign until I find the offer that best fits me. Versus I'm going to sign with a team, no matter the league, and then I'm going to bail for a team in another league because they're paying me an extra $100 a game or $200 a game. That's just my viewpoint on it. I support the guys that do that find the best offer for them, because we don't get paid a ton of money. So I want guys to get every penny they can get. But at the same time, like, for guys that want to move up to the next level, to the CFL, the UFL, the NFL, you don't get that opportunity. Like, when you sign a contract, when you do that, you're locked into that team. Even if it's a 1-year deal, like an indoor contract is, you're locked in for a year. Could you imagine if you were in the NFL and you signed a 1-year free agent deal? You've been begging for a chance, trying to get a chance, you get a chance, and then 2 months after you sign the contract, you say, oh, I'm going to go sign with a different team. So,
Wrong.
like how I view it is how the guys would be doing it if they were at the level they want to be at. Like that's the thing Coach Negron and I talk about is like, how can we make this the most professional situation these guys can have to prepare them for, if they get that opportunity to move up.
Yeah.
Then they're in professional environments, they're talking professionally, they're talking X's and O's, they're, able to really showcase their abilities on and off the field. And like this is a big part of it.
Agreed.
Because then, and I'm not singling out people, but like if you do that one time, it's gonna be real tough next year when you come knocking on the door asking for an opportunity for us to trust that you're gonna do it, like not do it again. So I do think that there's a guys have their reasons for doing it. Maybe they want to be closer to home. Maybe, this or that. They make more money. Whatever your case is, like I'm gonna support you guys. But man, like we got to have that level of professional. We want to talk about being pros, and we want ownership to be like professional and take care of this and do this, and we want coaches that treat players professionally. But like there's got to be a level of professionalism in the day to day, in the player to coach when he's asking, hey, can I potentially be released, or this or that, or coach to coach. Like we talk about, it's a small fraternity of coaches, but yet we do stuff like this, and like I said, I like Coach Jones, so I'm not upset with Coach Jones, but like there's just been so many instances over my career where coaches just kind of go and they poach players from other rosters because they have the money to do it, and you don't owe anybody anything, but at the same time, like you know it's just to me it's just the right way to do business. It's just shoot a text, shoot a call, an email, whatever, just saying, hey, I'm looking at, you know what, hey TJ, I know you signed Sam, uh, but we're looking to give Sam a few extra $100. It's a little bit closer to home, whatever. Hey, just want to
Sorry,
make you
TJ.
aware. Like, but that's all it's got to
No,
be.
he's mine.
But that's all it's got to be. Like, it's that simple. Even if TJ's like, no, TJ can't really stop Sam from signing into a different league, but it's at least that level of respect. Like, I know TJ did the work to go recruit Sam. He did the phone calls, he watched the film, he did this, and he put the value on Sam that he felt for the organization.
League minimum for sure, just for everybody. Yeah.
Hey Sam, we give you
And I
league
wanna chime
minimum,
in real quick.
and we give you like 2 meals a week.
2 meals a week?
I meant a day. Sorry.
That's crazy.
Is it Taco Bell? I'm just kidding.
We'll give you
Throwing a case
$12
of Monster Energy.
Yeah, case of Monster and $15 at Taco Bell.
Got to be watermelon Red Bull or no deal. No deal. Can't do it. Can't do it. But anyway, let's go back to the AF1 transactions here. First of all, I firmly agree with what CJ is trying to put down here.
Hello?
There needs to be a level of professionalism from everybody involved if we want this to be regarded as truly professional football. But with that being said, I think there definitely needs to be some sort of collaboration between the leagues in order for that to be a thing on a widespread level. Unfortunately, these leagues have to come together and be like, look, we're going to suspend a player collectively from every league if he signs with multiple teams. And maybe that's the progression that we need to see. Now, I don't think that any league is really going to be wanting to do that because obviously that handicaps some of your coaches. It prevents you from getting some of the best players available and stuff like that. So we'll see. But I just don't know that it's ever going to be a something that's widespread enough. But we talked about Minnesota making a lot of moves all at once, and here's a list of them. Aaron Jackson, previously with Fisher's Freight, joins Minnesota. Javonte Johnson has been with Minnesota for a couple of years, has played multiple positions throughout his career, or multiple places throughout his career. LaDarian McAllister, I think he played with the Iowa Rampage and a couple other teams throughout the years. Deron Maxwell played with Albany most recently. Shannon Brooks, Minnesota alum, He's been with the Arizona Rattlers. He was with the Edmonton Elks. He's had a couple other teams throughout his career as well. Richie Anderson, previously with Washington. Jamal Couch has played with multiple teams. Lorenzo Hernandez was previously with Vegas. Shai Hill, previously with Washington. Quintavious Workman was with Minnesota. He was also with Corpus Christi. Travis Whitlock, previously with Minnesota. William Walters, I am not familiar with him. Jaquez Mabin, I believe, was with Albany last season at one point. Lavelle Spruce was with Oregon, if I remember correctly, and he was also with Southwest Kansas to begin the year. LeBaron Mallory, Nathan Cromie, Jordan Seminot, Damian Powell, and Torrey Boyd. I mean, that is quite the transaction list there. So let's go ahead and go around the table. Give us your thoughts first here. Let's go to CJ first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I was reading the comments over here on the side of the screen, but I think Minnesota's setting themselves up to be a very competitive team that's going to be pushing towards the end, towards the end of the season. It'll be interesting to see how they shake that stigma of being a TAL team, transition to the AF1. I think they're building a really good roster. So it'll just be yet to be seen. I mean, when you've got Albany and Nashville and Kentucky right now who openly are spending a little money. That's the name of the game. It's going to be interesting to see how well they do transitioning. Because it is such a difference in like rules and you're adding more people, you got to coach and do all that stuff. So I think that starting off like these first 10-12 transactions I've seen them make, I think they're building the team in a way that's going to be really competitive. And I'll be interested to see how well they do.
I agree. What sticks out to me personally, I look at these moves, they have a ton of length at defensive back. I mean, LeBaron Mallory is listed at 6'4". I think he's actually 6'2", if I remember correctly. But Nathan Cromie's listed at 6'5". Jordan Seminot, 6'4". You also have Deron Maxwell up here, which is listed as defensive back, but I think he played more linebacker, if I remember correctly. He's also listed at 6'2". So, I mean, then you also have some of these wide receivers. Quintavious Workman, 6'6". Jamal Couch, 6'5". Ladarian McAllister, 6'4". So there's some serious mismatches to be had there with Minnesota. So it's interesting to see how they've built their team. I mean, not that I'm entirely surprised. We've seen Coach O'Neill kind of talk very publicly about the fact that they're paying players. He doesn't seem to really shy away from the fact that he's paying, and honestly, he seems to look at it as a good thing in his personal opinion, and I can't necessarily argue against that. Players getting what they are, what they can get for their services is a good thing. As long as that team can honor all those commitments, I see no issue with it overall.
I did want to ask you guys, though. There have been reports, and this is public information at this point, that Minnesota's offering signing bonuses to players to sign contracts there. Do you think that's the new norm if it works out in indoor arena football, or what do you think about that?
I don't think it's a bad idea per se. However, I think you get yourself into a slippery slope where if you start offering signing bonuses, everybody's going to expect one. And you also have to understand that not everybody's going to make your roster. So you might be handing out money to guys who never make the team, which if you're okay with that, that is perfectly fine. I will also throw out there that I don't know that Minnesota's paying for training camp. And if they aren't, that signing bonus essentially works to buoy that guy's time through training camp when they're not paying. So I like it for multiple different aspects, to be honest. And honestly, like I talk about a lot, I want the players to be paid what they deserve, and I would love everybody to be able to be paid thousands per game. But is it realistic for every team? No, it's not. So as long as Minnesota can back up everything that they're doing and they can actually make it come to fruition, again, I don't have a huge issue with it. But CJ, TJ, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Sam. I think it's a great thing if it can be done. Um, I think that it's tough for the same reasons. Like, what if the guy doesn't make the team? Or what if the guy gets whatever it is, say $2,000 for a signing bonus, and then all of a sudden decides to bail and go play in the IFL?
That
Well,
was my thought as well.
like, are you paying the signing bonus, like you said, as a like payment for camp, or are you paying it when they sign the contract, like how they would in the NFL, different things like that? That definitely would change my thought process. Like, if you're paying it for them to sign the contract, for them to sign a piece of paper, you're going to give them X amount of dollars. Well, what if that guy just says, "I'm good. I'm going to go play over here," and collect $2,000 on a random Tuesday afternoon and go do XYZ. So I think as long as you have like regulations in place to do it, I think it could be okay. I just don't think it's going to be catch on enough to be universal. I think it's going to be a team to team basis, and at the end of the day, teams have been doing that. As maybe not necessarily a signing bonus, but teams have been overpaying, and who the Joneses are that everyone's trying to keep up with. So you know, once again, though, it comes down to coaching and building a roster that's competitive and can compete to win championships. It's not always about who can spend the highest amount of money year to year, because we've seen that just because you spend the most doesn't mean you're going to win the most.
That's so true. There's a couple things that I wanted to get to here. Triple McGee asks, has the defensive player of the year for the AF1, Michael Lawson, got signed yet? He is weighing out multiple options. He has not yet signed a contract. Trust me when I say he's got a couple teams looking his way, and I am pretty positive that he's going to be playing somewhere in 2026, although I believe he has said that may or may not ultimately be his last season playing. So hopefully it's not. Love watching the dude play. He's very exciting to play. Almost has an offensive mindset on as a defensive back. He feels like he's entitled to the ball, and I think that's always something that I love to watch from defensive players. They kind of go out and get it. Brian Schumacher says, I would like y'all to consider doing a tier ranking of the different league websites, transactions, news, stats, schedules, game viewing. I like this idea, and I think that's a very good idea for us to do in the near future, because I think we have a couple weeks coming up here soon where we don't have a ton of guests, and we can kind of maybe do a shorter show and incorporate that thought process. So I appreciate that suggestion, Brian. We will definitely consider doing that in the near future, and hopefully you guys enjoy that one. Ricky says, how many people want the level of respect but won't extend the same themselves is mind-blowing. That is very accurate. Excuse me. CJ, do you ever think some players or coaches fear repercussions when discussing potential player moves?
I mean, there's probably that factor of you don't want to upset someone, or you don't want to, maybe tamper with a relationship or anything like that. But, at the end of the day, I don't know if that really plays a factor into a lot of guys' decisions on both ends, coaches and players. I think that's just solely like, I think it's a case by case. I mean, there's not really many repercussions you can have. I mean, if you could suspend a guy from the NAL if he goes signs to another league, and then if he tries to jump to another league, he could get suspended, and eventually, that suspension only lasts for the duration of the season. So, you know, if a guy gets suspended from the NAL, the AF1, and the IFL, he just takes the year off and goes and trains and does all that, and then comes back next year. So now, I would not be opposed, and this is something maybe for a different show, but a like 3-strike policy. So say TJ, you signed Sam, and Sam bailed to another league, he gets a strike. He signs back into the NAL, he does it again. That's another strike. Once you get to then you're like, I don't want to say like, but you have to face a full like suspension. Like you can't get signed by any NAL team, anything like that. Like I don't want to say kick a guy out of a league by any means, but there's got to be something to hold people accountable, because everybody wants accountability until they have to be accountable. So that's just my belief on it. I think we've got to, each case is going to be different, and each case is going to have its uniqueness. So you gotta take each one with a grain of salt, and it comes down to, did the player just communicate with his current coach and say, "Hey, coach, this is a better opportunity. Cool, we move on."
That's fair. Krish, what are your thoughts on this one? I mean, if players do get that signing bonus, do they have any sort of terms to where they have to pay those back, or are you privy to that information at all?
I'm not. I don't believe they have to pay it back. I believe it's a one-time bonus. You get it when you sign, and you don't have to pay it back. But that's the only issue with it. I think it's a good idea, obviously, if they can make it work. But, my thing is guys signing and then not showing up, which I've seen happen myself before. So,
for the record, it could be for good reasons, too. I mean, what if a guy signs with Minnesota and then gets signed by the CFL? Shannon Brooks, for instance, who's been in the CFL. Do you go try to get that guy's signing bonus back because he got a higher opportunity? Probably not, right? That's something that you're going to parade as a good thing because you want to promote players, like Tony O'Neill has said in the past.
I think it comes down to like we're all saying that it's a case by case.
Yeah.
If Shannon Brooks gets an opportunity at the CFL, then nobody's going to be upset.
Yeah.
But if a guy takes the signing bonus and then just RTRs to try to go to another league or just stay at the house because he didn't want to actually play there, he just was chasing that signing bonus because he had heard from his buddy that this team was offering a signing bonus, that's where I think you run into the issues. When I'm telling TJ, hey TJ, Sam's out there offering, $2,000 for us to sign. So, let's just sign, and then we can go do something after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, it's a unique situation. I don't think we see much at this level. Most teams aren't offering signing bonuses for that reason because it's a slippery slope. You could honestly get yourself in a lot of trouble, by paying out money that you never see a return on. And, at this level, you really have to think about the return on your investment when it comes to a player. So, Jim asks, do we know when these new teams will be announced in the AF1 and where they will be? I'll take this one. I've said religiously there is at least 3 more team announcements coming. I'm not entirely sure if all 3 of them will be for this season. So there are some caveats there yet. But I do have an idea that there are some teams coming. There's been some whispers about one of the teams in particular. You've seen it on social media. Jeremiah Spicer put it out there pretty bluntly that San Diego is a potential team that could be, seen in the AF1. And I believe there's some legs to that story. And then I believe that there's also, obviously, Michigan is still coming. I've heard a lot of movement toward them potentially being in Kalamazoo. I don't know that there's any legitimacy to Stockton. I want them to work out. They've got a very experienced group, and I think that they would do well to kind of launch a team, but I don't think it's going to happen. At least not this season. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong on that one. And then there's one other team coming from another market or potentially coming from another market. But I actually don't have a lot of details on that team. So take it or leave it. That's, there's potential of 3 more teams joining the AF1 for 2026. I think, we have a pretty good idea that Michigan's going to happen, especially at this point. And then the other 2 are still kind of up in the air, but we will see. Hopefully everything works out and AF1 adds 3 more teams for 2026 and they have a nice round. I think 12, if I remember correctly. Any other thoughts, subjects, topics you guys want to discuss before we get out of here for today?
Yeah, I think Michigan, you were right. I hear Michigan's coming next week. So we should have that announcement next week sometime. I'm not sure when. San Diego, I heard mixed things on. but I don't know. I don't think it'll happen, honestly. And then the other teams, I'm not sure. But um, so no, I'm excited to see how free agency progresses. I expect a lot of NAL movement this coming week. IFL moves, big, relocation, expansion news will be announced. So excited for that, and then just looking forward to the rest of the off season. I think we still have a lot in store for what's to come.
Absolutely. Any final thoughts from you, TJ?
No, I just want to give one quick shout out, kind of crossing sports slightly, but congratulations to the Vegas Aces, baby. WNBA champions again.
Vegas, the
Wow.
city of champions right
I
now.
was going to say, Vegas is just collecting the rings this season. Raiders, you're up. Just saying. Good luck.
No pressure.
That's a good joke. That's a good. Oh wait, what?
CJ, any final thoughts from you, buddy?
Yeah, just say it every time. Support your local indoor team. Buy merch. Buy season tickets. If you're truly looking for opportunities to come compete, there's plenty. Everyone's doing tryouts right now across the country. The Omaha Beef have their tryout not next Saturday, the following Saturday, the 25th. So if you're watching this show and you're one of those guys who wants an opportunity, we still have roster spots that we're holding for the tryout. But come showcase your abilities. Come show up and show out. Get evaluated. You want opportunity to elevate. You want opportunity to chase the continued dream that you've had of playing professional football. There's an opportunity there. I guarantee you, there's one in Vegas and all across the country. So if you're a guy watching this, go to a tryout, man. Go to a tryout, get your opportunity, get your foot in the door. You could be the next guy.
Speaking about Vegas, I did want to ask you all one question. What do you think the chances are that they repeat this year and win a title? I know it's early, but you got to give your prediction.
I mean, they brought back some great pieces to start. I mean, Coach Davis has gotten that thing. He got his quarterback back. He's brought back some key players. It's like anything. You're going to bring back some guys. You're going to lose some guys. I think Coach Davis has done a pretty good job of building that team. It's been a build, a climb all the way to the top. He knows the formula, what it's going to take. So I think he'll replace the pieces that he's losing to Albany and to these other places with more young, hungry guys, and I see them competing all the way to the end. It's too early to say if they're gonna repeat, and he'll probably say the same thing. He'll say it's too early to repeat until probably the last second hits off the clock in the 2026 championship game. But I think he's off to a good start. Getting Delora back is a heck of a heck of a move to start.
I agree. I think he'll always have good linemen because of his CFL connections and how respected he is up there. So that gives him a big advantage, having guys who understand that style. And then, I think the receiving core looking good. Like I'm high on Jelani Baker. I think he's going to be good. Deshaun Stoudemire, I'm so excited to see him. And then, that defense will be good. I mean, they signed Marquise Waters. I mean, we know what Marquise can do. So I just think they have more stuff coming for that team. They signed a couple D linemen this week too, so I'm excited. I'm excited to see so if you had to give one champion for each league so far, right? This is my final thing for you guys. I'm gonna put you all on the spot. I know what you're gonna say, TJ, but NAL, AF1, and IFL. Who would you choose?
So you're saying like who I think should like win the championship based on the rosters currently?
So far.
I mean, I'll go AF1 first. I mean, it's going to be a little surprising here, but I don't know, man. I'm putting money on Kentucky right now. I like those moves. I like Coach Walker as a coach, and some of those moves they've made have been really impressive. Ezekiel Rose, Philip Barnett, Darius Prince. That's that's a pretty good group he's got going up there. So that would be my early pick. IFL, I mean, it's hard not to bet on the champs, just because I know what they have coming back. And if I did like a 1B, like if I had to pick who would be playing in the championship, I think it's going to end up being Vegas versus Tulsa, because I think Tulsa's got a lot of really good players signed, and they have really good quarterbacks signed. So I'm still going to lean towards Vegas, and then obviously, like, I'd be foolish not to lean towards my guys in the NAL. You know, we've got a full roster signed pretty much. Still, like I said, still have spots available, but I like where we're at position by position across the board.
So for me, it's kind of interesting because for the AF1, I agree with your Kentucky picks. I love the defense they have in Kentucky. I love their D line. I love their O line. I think they're building something good. I think they're a quarterback away though, but I think Luke Bailey, as he develops through, I think he'll be really good in this style of play. In the NAL, for me, I mean, I like your defense in Omaha. I've been very clear. I like your D line. I think you have an amazing D line. You're the best D line in the league so far. For me, it's between you and Colorado. Like, I love the team Colorado's building. I'm huge on Colorado this year. Like, that's my homer pick, but I would pick you or Colorado. It's hard for me to pick one right now, just because we're too early in the roster building stages. And then for IFL, I'm going to go against you. I'm going to say, obviously, I want us to win the championship every year. You know I'm going to say Pirates. But realistically, right now, we have no players or coaches signed. So we need to wait till that. Well, that too. But but no, I mean, I like Indy a lot. I mean, I think Indy's a good team. Like, we need to be ready for Indy. That team's a really good team. They're returning a lot of pieces, and they have an edge on a lot of teams because of the chemistry that they developed. Right? They signed both their running backs. They signed basically their entire O-line. They got Harper back. Their receivers. They got Isaiah Coulter, C.J. Wyndham. Like, that's a good receiving core they got down there. So I'm excited to see what Indy. And then, I mean, Vegas. I think Vegas has a slight edge on Arizona because I think Vegas has a slightly better defense that they got cooking up. So I think
I'll tell you what, though.
Yeah.
The fact that we're going to get Delora versus Max Mailer like 3 times potentially this season is going to be epic. Like, that's going to be I mean, they're always really good games between those two, but like, having, and correct was Mailer IFL MVP?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got the IFL MVP with the IFL Championship MVP, competing against each other, 2 or 3 times in a season. I think it's gonna be pretty good. I think, just like anything, I think the the Rattlers are gonna be in it towards the end. But I just, something about Vegas, just, I think they're built for the long haul. I think that, I don't know, that I just like where they're at right now with the guys they've signed.
I think every year different, and I think people would say that, but at the same time, I think he's developed a championship, method. And I think, last year, right, they got knocked out first round of the playoffs, but he built it to a number 1 seed. Now he built a championship team. So now he knows what, like, it takes to take that next step, if you know what I mean. And it's not just a 1-year thing. It's been building for a while. But for me, I look at that depth they have on Vegas. Like, look at the backup quarterback. Darius, you know who I'm talking about, Shady, the kid from Richmond.
Darius Perantes.
He's insane. Like, I mean,
really good quarterback.
I thought he played at Duquesne, but I could be wrong.
Maybe. I thought he played at Richmond.
They look the exact same, but yeah.
Yeah, regardless, I think he's played a couple schools, but regardless, he's a really good player.
Really good.
He might be the next guy. Like, if Jaden gets a call outdoors, he might be the next guy for Vegas.
No, but I think that's the plan, though. Because, see, if Jaden comes back and plays the whole season, there's no way Jaden doesn't get an opportunity next year. They signed, 10 guys CFL? There's no way Jaden doesn't get a UFL or CFL opportunity with him already having experience there. So now you have a guy who can develop for a whole season and then come back in 27 and be the guy. Like, that's just such a smart move. He played just like Gerard Evans, who played with them, in 2022, but he's in better shape than Gerard ever was. So I'm excited to, see him. I think he's better than a lot of IFL starting quarterbacks. Like, I would take him over what Iowa has. I would take him over what Tucson has. So I just think it's such a power move for Vegas.
Agreed. TJ, do you have any predictions for championships?
CJ stole mine. It's now we're on the same wavelength. I like Cedric Walker. He's a great coach. Since I don't know what's going on with any team or former ownership that I had in the AF1. I was gonna probably go Kentucky this year, so I'll stay homer and pick them. Uh, and then obviously in the IFL and NAL, I'm also staying home. Man, I'm going with Vegas and Omaha. Hopefully, I get the triple crown next arena and indoor season as a fan.
For me, for my championship favorites currently, I think I've got either Vegas or Arizona in the West. I think we could see a situation where Fishers is probably the team coming out of the East. AF1, I like a lot of the moves Minnesota's made. I like Kentucky, Nashville, Albany. I think this season is going to be really competitive at the top half of the league. I actually have Nashville probably being the team that makes it into the championship game and possibly wins. But you can never count out Albany, obviously. So that's going to be a tough league to pick this year. TAL, I've definitely got my money on Arkansas. I like the roster they've built so far, and I mean, obviously, it's very, very early for them, but there's definitely some pieces there. Isaac Zico, etc. I also like Bones Bagante. He's a great coach, proven to be a championship caliber coach so far. And with Minnesota leaving, you have to really wonder if there's not a division of power there in the league at this point. And then in the NAL, there's a couple teams that really stick out. I mean, obviously, Omaha is a really strong bet to make the championship game. I think they've been in every championship game for like 4 or 5 years now. So it would not shock me to see them in the championship game again. Wouldn't surprise me if Colorado's there. Sioux City is always a team you can't sleep on. And then Southwest Kansas, obviously, I'm gonna throw a little love their way, although it's very early and hard to tell, what their roster is going to look like overall. So there is this question in the chat: isn't TL adding new teams this season? Supposedly they were trying to shoot for 10 teams, but I think that statement was made before Minnesota left. So I would imagine their goals have changed slightly, but yes, there's supposed to be teams announced. What's going on with Billings? There's no more news out of Billings other than the fact that they placed the team for sale a couple weeks ago, like we spoke about. And as of right now, to my knowledge, there is no buyer. There is a group of people that have interest in purchasing the team locally in Billings. I don't know if they'll be able to get it done. It would be great if they did. Would love to see the Outlaws keep going, but it's kind of trending towards them probably going dormant this upcoming season at a minimum and possibly relocating in the near future.
I do want to say, like, your indie pick is good, and like, I underestimated last season. Like, I'll be honest, like the importance of, and I said it last night, having a veteran indoor quarterback and having someone that really like understands the game. And I know Jaden Delora was a rookie last year, so that's why, like, yeah, you could be successful with a rookie, but it also helps that they had the MVP in the room too. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And Jaden didn't get forced into the starting lineup immediately, right? Remember how it was a two quarterback system for a while. So the way they did that, I don't know if Coach Davis is watching still, but I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think it was genius. I think it was a stroke of mastery by Curtis Chin to decide when to insert Jaden, when to take Jerome out, and ultimately the move to go to Jaden before the championship was talk about it. I mean, for lack of a better term, this is kind of a family show, but that's a brass set of balls right there, because he's like, hey, right before the championship game, I'm going to insert a rookie quarterback who's, played sparingly this season. And then it worked out perfection. So, kudos to Coach Chin and the Vegas staff, because, man, talk about a masterful move at quarterback this year.
Yeah, and that's what kind of held, honestly, like, I don't mind saying it. Like, it kind of held us back last year with the quarterback position. And I've said it privately, too. Like, Kenji took so long to understand the game. And by the time he did, it was too late, right? We were 2-5. And so if you don't have a guy who can come off the street right away and, like, make plays for you, I would love to look up what the combined record outside of Jaden Delora of IFL rookie starting quarterbacks. I can't imagine it would be too good, because it's hard. This game is different. You got to be able to understand. You got to be able to play. You got to be committed to learning. And if you're not, it's an uphill battle, so.
I would definitely agree. But on that note, I'm going to leave you guys with a couple things. I dropped some links in the chat. As you guys know, the past couple of weeks, I've kind of been driving home that there's a couple causes that I would love for our community to get behind and support. The first one is Justin Garcia is battling ALS. That disease is nothing short of terrible. To put it in Justin's own words from the story that was put out about his situation, it's like being in prison in your own body. And I can't imagine a worse fate for anybody who doesn't deserve it than that. So with that being said, Justin Garcia's family has a GoFundMe. I've dropped the link in the chat. I would love it if you guys could donate. If you do donate, shoot me a message. I'll see what I can do about getting you some Shady Sports merch or something in exchange. I think this is a really good cause that we should all get behind and support. Obviously, as I mentioned before, Justin Garcia is a former player for the Idaho Horsemen. ALS is a terrible disease that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemies. And I think that, Justin being the type of guy he is, that, he's touched many lives. He's been a great father, a great friend to many people, great husband from as far as I can tell. His wife seems very dedicated. So, at the end of the day, I think we need to kind of get behind him and support him as much as possible, and do what we can to help him with this battle, because essentially there really isn't much you can do but try to weather the storm with it. And it's disgusting, terrible, terrible disease. I really can't say enough bad words about it. But then I also dropped one for my family. As I mentioned a couple months ago, my cousin Neelan passed away in a car wreck, left behind a young son who really could use some of the support. My second cousin, his mother is raising the child by herself, while also kind of helping out her mother, who is getting up there in age. So really any and all support for those causes would be great. We really appreciate everybody who takes the time to donate. I know that I mentioned it last week. We've had some really good support from this community. We had over $100 donated to my family's charity. I would love to see it go the same direction for Justin. So either way, really appreciate you guys' time. I really appreciate you guys' support. And more than anything, like, you guys have kind of shown me that there's a lot of good people out there in the world, and we really appreciate all of you guys kind of taking the time and taking the money out of your pocket to support these guys. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Don't forget to catch the bus stop in an hour and 15 minutes. Shortly thereafter, we have Mercyhurst versus Wagner University on the Shady Sports Live Events page. Make sure you jump over there, subscribe to Shady Sports Live Events if you haven't done so already. If you haven't done so already, also, subscribe to Shady Sports Network on YouTube. We are nearing 3,000 subscribers. We could hit that number today. We're only 50 away. So with that being said, we have over 50 viewers right now. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, any of those other sites, please jump over, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Help us hit that 3,000 number. And then also give YouTube a hardcore middle finger for demonetizing us earlier this week. We're getting that situation figured out. But if you were a member, don't worry. We'll get it corrected and get you guys signed back up. We appreciate all the support. Catch you guys next week.
Yo, what's good? Cedric the bus driver here. I don't know about you guys, but I know what I will be doing every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Thursday nights too. I'll be over at Shady Sports Network, so catch up with me. Holla at your boy.